Hello, I am Jayantu Chatterjee from IIT Kanpur. We are discussing managing services and the contemporary issues in the modern world where the service philosophy is influencing all businesses. In the last couple of sessions, we have discussed about segmentation, targeting and positioning, and creating the value proposition, crisp value proposition, by virtue of which we win the hearts of a segment of customers and we create relationship with a target group in the market. Once we understand this concept of value proposition, we can extend that to the more popular, well-known concept of brand. To discuss today's topic of service branding, and this is the first set of discussion on branding. We will have another a little bit more advanced discussion later when we have covered all the other P's of service management as well. So, before we go into the branding perspective, we should revisit this famous diagram, which is called Shostak's Continuum, to honor the researcher who proposed this. And this is a very important diagram to understand at this stage, because when we create the brand architecture, this concept will be very useful. So, this diagram shows that almost everything that is there in the market can be positioned on this continuum. So, at one end we have mainly products, or we call goods, very dominant in tangible characteristics. So, salt is often placed at this extreme, or dog food or pet food is placed at this extreme. At one time necktie was placed here, but it may not be the right position today, because there are many things happening in that market to push it this way. At the other extreme, we have what is happening right now here: teaching, exchange of knowledge, or nursing, healthcare. There isn't much of tangible here. There is some, like for example, this PowerPoint which is in front of you, or the textbook that we have referred and we are using, or the kind of connection, internet connection that you are using. These are certain tangible elements, but they are kind of external. The good knowledge exchange between you and me can happen without these paraphernalia. So, the core proposition here, the exchange of knowledge between you and me, exchange of knowledge between you and the others who are participating in this course, when you put your comments or read others' comments on the forum, that knowledge flow, knowledge exchange, which is at the core of this service, is mostly intangible and is not really dependent on goods or products. But between these two extremes lie most of the other offerings in the marketplace, and that is why, if you remember, we had discussed earlier that most offerings in the marketplace most value proposition, and therefore most brands are both tangible and intangible, are products and services, depicted also by the coinage which I presented to you, product service system. So, this systemic nature, this composite nature for most offerings of most brands is a good concept to start with. Brand, as many marketing gurus, management gurus have defined, is a name, it is a sign, it is a symbol, it is a design, and a combination of these intended to identify the goods or services distinctively with respect to others, with respect to competitors. So, it is both an identifier, usually tangible, and a promise, usually intangible. So, identifies like logo or color or a jingle sound are tangibles, and intangibles are the embedded promise of the brand. So, this diagram kind of expands that view. So, on the top is, so this can be even also presented like a pyramid. So, the top of the pyramid is reputation. Brand is another name of reputation. Reputation, to put it another way, reputation is the foundation of brand. And differentiation with respect to competitors, distinctiveness is the deliverable of the brand. So, reputation is the foundation and differentiation is the deliverable from brand, and that happens through various categories of interactions and perceptions and beliefs. For example, sense of security. This is sense of security or managing uncertainty or managing the risk perception. All of these can be clubbed here, where the customer feels secure to decide in favor of a particular service, for that matter for a particular product, based on its brand strength, because the brand, a strong brand, helps to reduce the uncertainty and the sense of risk in the customer's mind. So, brand delivers sense of security, that it is a good decision to buy this service from Air India or from Jet Airways or from Indigo, depending on the circumstances. Brand conveys quality perception. Obviously, a high brand, a well positioned brand, a famous brand connotes quality. You cannot have a global brand if your quality is not very good, if your quality is not superlative. When we discuss in detail about quality, we will see that there are different shades. Quality is a range of perceptions. But at this stage it suffices to say that a good brand, a strong brand connotes high quality. Brand also is a name, is a logo, color, shape. So, these are all that actually are at the foundation level of the brand. Name, logo, color, shape, sound, many, like Nirma. The moment you think of Nirma, people remember the jingle, washing powder Nirma, and so on. There are many such examples. Jingles that have stayed, survived decades, giving a lot of strength to that particular brand. Just like quality perception is sort of quite intangible in many ways, particularly in case of service. We have discussed this because of the heterogeneity. High quality musical concert to one segment of customer, a classical concert to a segment of audience who understand the nuances of classical music, can be superlative. But the same can be sort of okay or ordinary for another unschooled or uninformed customer segment who may be more in awe of the, the grandeur of the opera house or the opulence of the production and so on. So, the quality perception, as I was saying, has the different shades, different dimensions. We will discuss that in more detail later on when we discuss quality and productivity in the service domain. But to conclude this architecture, to conclude this view of different aspects of brand, its foundation and its deliverable, to conclude the discussion, I will discuss another very important thing, that all brands are promises. They serve a certain set of aspiration in the customer's mind. And some researchers say that you may propose or you may deliver an excellent set of utilitarian values through your product or service or combination, but you will fail if you do not understand the subliminal, the undercurrent of aspiration, emotion in the minds of the consumers. People often say that, for example, it's a product example, but relevant in this particular context, that Tata Nano was successful in terms of the utilitarian value it offered when it was launched, but it failed to respond to the aspirational values in the minds of the first time car buyer. So, when it was positioned as a cheap car, then it undermined that aspiration in the customer's mind, and nobody wanted to be identified with a cheap car because they wanted that car to be also a statement that they have arrived, that they are now economically well off to go beyond the two-wheeler. And that is why, though it was more expensive, the entry level cars of Maruti or Hyundai did much better, even though they were more expensive. And that is why the Tata Nano car is now getting repositioned as a car for the young. It's a zippy car, it's a Zingo car, it's very good in the urban tight parking situation and so on. So, it's changing its position more like the famous, towards the famous S car of Mercedes and so on. So, we have to understand, therefore, go back to the previous definition. So, we have to understand in brand the identifiers as well as the promises, the tangibles as well as the intangibles. So, to the service consumer, I have just deliberately written it in short so that you will expand it. So, to the service consumer, brand helps to identify good products in his or in the consumer's mind, reduce the decision making time to make the purchase because it reduces the risk perception, the sense of uncertainty, It helps to evaluate quality of products because brand stands as a proxy for quality. It reduces perceived risk and creates some kind of psychological reward. So, when you buy a certain brand of toothpaste, you are buying the psychological reward that it will help you to get close to others who will not get repulsed by your bad breath. So, the fresh breath, clean breath is also a promise for a reward of companionship, social popularity and so on. In the same way, to the service organization, brand helps to differentiate the product from competitors. Segment market by creating tailored images. It is also often used for repositioning the brand. For example, Amul, the dominant brand for milk and milk products, is trying to reposition itself that it is also a fun drink. It is a drink for the young people, it is a party drink and so on. So, it no longer needs to compete with other milk brands because it is already a dominant milk brand. It now wants to expand its brand footprint and wants to compete with other kinds of beverages, the so called fun beverages, the cola type of beverages and so on. So, Amul has come out with a therefore an expanded proposition with different kind of packaging, different kind of colored flavored milk and positioning it as a even in different kind of packaging. So, just like a cola drink, you can drink from the bottle or from the just like there you can drink from the can and throw it away, here you can drink from the bottle and dispose it off, or from the Tetra Pak and dispose it off. So, brand therefore helps to segment the market by tailoring the image. It also helps to expand the market segment, address a new market segment and so on. It makes repeat purchase easier, reduces price comparison, and it communicates the value, the promise. So, these are the set of advantages derived by the customer from the brand, and these are the set of advantages derived by the service organization from the brand. I have now given a small assignment for you in front of you. Like I have written here, the elements of a good brand should be memorable and likable. Just as we like somebody for some logical reasons as well as for emotional reasons, for intangible reasons. In the same way, a brand needs to be memorable and likable, therefore, it needs to appeal to our inner subconscious level. It needs to be meaningful, it needs to offer security with the promise of important attributes as well as determinant attributes. And a brand needs to be evolving, it cannot be static. Point we discussed when we discussed proposition, value proposition, that you need to be ahead of your competition and definitely respond to competition, their value proposition. So, a brand therefore needs to be always fresh in the customer's mind. That is why we often have recreational campaigns to recreate the brand's freshness. So, that is the other thing, evolving and fresh. Your assignment is now to write at least 5 more bullet points about this query. What should be the elements of a good brand? So, write 5 views and post it on the forum. So, to conclude on our discussion at this stage on branding, we present this particular 4 quadrant somewhat similar to the Ansoff matrix. So, if the brand name is the same and the service category remains the same, so it is like the line extension, like I have mentioned the name of Bhajahari Manna. So, if you go to their website, you will see that with the same kind of service which is offering traditional exotic Bengali cuisine in modern ambience, existing brand name Bhajahari Manna, existing service category, but they are creating different, adding different items to their menu, discovering forgotten recipes and adding it. So, this is the line extension activity for a brand. This is creating the freshness, evolution of the existing brand, etc. Similarly, there can be a new service category with the same brand name, like Bhajahari Manna now has a party service, home delivery for if you suddenly invite 10 people and you need to quickly rustle up a good meal, you call them up and you get delivery, home delivery of a dinner for 12 people, 15 people or whatever. So, that is a kind of what we call brand extension, party dabba. There can be with the same, within the same brand, but there can be different brand names, but same service, existing service. So, like British Airways or Singapore International Airlines, they are great masters. So, within their same service they will say Raffles class. So, it is a new brand. Singapore Airlines is a brand, Raffles class is another brand which connotes their business class. So, they try to say that our business class is not just another business class, it is Raffles class. So, you need to create that sort of campaign, that sort of value proposition, etc. Or there can be a completely new brand for a new service category, like Reliance is a very strong brand in petrochemicals or textile and so on, but they are now getting into multimedia, data streaming, high speed data service, internet service, and they are calling it Reliance Jio. So, this is an example of a new brand where the brand name is new and the service category is new. Of course, they continue to use Reliance, which is often the tactics used by multi-brand companies. And some advanced thought. Our main discussion today is this assignment in light of the points that we discussed, that you have to give me some elements of a good brand, at least 5. But I am leaving some advanced thoughts in your mind. One is this, because I will leverage on these thoughts later on when I rediscuss a brand at an advanced stage. And this is another view from a very famous book called No Logo by Naomi Klein. And this pointed out that consumers leverage brand, consumers derive benefits from brand, which we discussed just now, but brands are sometimes manipulative. They hide bad labor practices, cartelization, they often promise miracles. So, you have all kinds of miracle drugs for weight loss, miracle services for 15 kgs in 2 weeks and something like that. Many of them are not sustainable, but they keep on doing it. So, there is a certain amount of criticism against branding which is valid, that the brands are often manipulative because they tinker with customers' self expression and self image and play on customers' weaknesses by promising all kinds of unsubstantiable claims. But these are some advanced topics. We will discuss this compulsion sometimes when we revisit the branding issue in light of these things like product life cycles, etc. So, another set of assignment for you, this is, I want you to fill up the gaps here. This is actually taken from another famous author and researcher in the service field, Berry. Strong brands increase customers ... of the invisible purchase. Strong brands enable customers to better ... and understand intangible products. If you can fill up these two gaps, that will be great, and we will discuss this one a little later, one more time later on. And this other one for you to think about, we have discussed this actually in another context earlier in over 4 different sessions, that these are the characteristics of service: intangibility, inseparability, inconsistency and inventory. You would recall that we said that to respond to the challenges generated by these, 2 major approaches are promotion, communication, customer education, promotion, and process. Let us focus on that issue of promotion or communication, and let us therefore think in our minds that how these characteristics, these challenges are mitigated by branding strategies. So, brand as a package of communication often help us to respond to the challenges thrown up by IHIP. And you think about it, I leave this request with you, and remember that my requests are often self-serving, because these requests may appear in the form of certain questions when you respond to your quiz or your examinations. So, I end today's session with this particular diagram, reminder about what intangibility, inseparability, inconsistency, etc. are, the IHIP characteristics, and how brand can help us to respond. And these 4 blocks of brand categories, branding strategies, 4 types of branding strategies, and your assignment where you have to come up with 5 elements of a good brand. Thank you.